Hello, worldly crazy people out there. My name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games, and welcome to the GameMaker extension generator. So the GameMaker extension generator is an official tool that was released by Yoyo Games a couple of weeks ago, and it does a couple of interesting things. So the most interesting thing that it does is that some of you who have been around for a long time might remember the old ways of creating extensions in GameMaker. Way back in the old days, if you wanted to call a code that you'd written in some other language, C++ from GameMaker, you would have had to have gone and basically linked the DLL to GameMaker yourself through code, which was kind of tedious. Later on came the various extension assets that you could create through the IDE or through external tools, which were honestly kind of also tedious, but over time, as GameMaker gained more cross-platform capabilities, they gained the ability to do things like automatically swap out DLLs on Windows for shared objects on Linux or dilibs on Mac, etc. And the GameMaker extension generator is more or less the next evolution on that. So the extension generator is not going to replace the current extension mechanism, but it will extend its capabilities. It will automatically do some things that make it easier to do, for example, sending complex data types back and forth between GameMaker and your extension. As I often do, I'm probably going to make at least two videos on this. One where I just cover basic use and setting it up, and another where I get a little bit more into some of the more advanced things you can do with it. So that's all cool. The second interesting thing that GameMaker has done is that they have basically created the holotype specimen of, like, AI-generated documentation in this here README. So if you don't have, like, a sixth sense that goes off in your brain when you see, like, AI-generated anything, just look at the README file. This checks off pretty much all the boxes for, like, if you tell ChatGPT to write something like that. Like, ChatGPT, could you have inserted any more emoji into this? I don't think this has enough emoji. For what it's worth, I don't think the extension itself is vibe coded. I have looked through the source. It does look very Yoyo Gamesy in its style. The, like, commits make sense. It's just the documentation that was very obviously written by a large language model. So, more seriously, on the subject of large language models, I am going to say the word generate about 50 billion times in this video. We are not vibe anythinging in this video. The extension generator is going to generate template code for you based on a strict set of rules that you defined for it. We are not throwing anything into a large language model. This is a command line utility which will run on anything locally. It was not trained on mountains of code written by other people without their permission. So I don't want to see any nonsense down in the comments about how GameMaker is an AI-first game engine or any such silliness. Now, more seriously, this is a bit of an advanced tool. You're not going to need to be, like, a PhD in computer science in order to use this, but we will be doing things like using cmake as a build system. We will be doing things like talking to the computer via the command line. We will be doing things like editing the Windows path variable. So this is something that you probably don't want to really mess with unless you actually know your way around the computer fairly well. But if you're okay with all that, and you don't mind getting your hands dirty inside the computer, then the extension generator is a pretty interesting tool which theoretically makes it a lot easier for people to do things like writing significant portions of their game logic in some other language, compiling it into some sort of shared library or DLL, and not like going as far as allowing you to write C++ directly in GameMaker, but allowing you to write C++ on the side and get it into GameMaker more efficiently. Alright, so if you want to go and download the extension generator, which I assume you probably do, go to the Releases tab on the GitHub repository, which I will have linked down in the description of this video. I am going to go download extension generator-win-x64.zip, and that's going to download, and we are going to get a look at probably what is the messiest downloads folder in existence. I really should clean this out one of these days. I'm going to go and just extract this folder, and we can start playing around with what is inside the extension generator. So the extension generator is a command line tool. If you just double click the executable, it is going to pop up a terminal for a couple of frames. It's going to stare at you and it's going to just disappear. So we will need to use the command line to access this. Now, what I would strongly recommend is I would recommend taking this folder that you extracted, putting it in a more permanent location on your computer, such as your user folder, or such as, I don't know, some other folder that you have on your computer where you like to store portable executables or something like that. Because what we're going to do next is we are going to go and edit the path variable in Windows And if you're on Linux or Mac, there should be some equivalent. And we're going to edit the path variable. And the path variable on Windows is basically a list of folders on your computer, which Windows will automatically look for executables in when you type the executable name into the terminal. And it will run them as if the executable exists in the folder that you're running them from. And you can basically then treat, for example, xgen.exe as a built-in Windows command. So to do that, I'm going to take the address of this folder. I'm going to just copy it out of there, and I'm just going to like go and paste it into the path environment variable on a new line. If you do a lot of dev stuff on your computer, you may or may not have like a longer list of folders inside your path variable. Anyway, we can close that, we can close this, we can close that, and now I think we will hop over to GameMaker. And this is an empty GameMaker project. I haven't done anything yet. What I'm going to want to do first is I'm going to go and open up the folder where this project lives in Windows Explorer, and I'm going to start working out of this folder. So I'm going to open up a terminal here, and on Windows 11, you can go and use the right-click context menu to say open in terminal. On Windows 10, I don't think this is an option in the right-click context menu, but the other easy way to open a terminal to a folder location is to go into the address bar, delete whatever the address of the folder is, and then just type cmd, and this will execute a command, which you can use to open up a terminal here. You can also, of course, open up a terminal some other way, and then like cd over to whatever folder you want it to run out of. Classic terminal, PowerShell, doesn't really matter. On Linux, there should be an option in most shells and most distros to right-click and open a terminal in a folder. So on Mac, I have no idea. I haven't used an Apple computer in about 20 years. Anyway, once you are here, we can tell the extension generator to initialize a new project with the --init command argument. And we're also going to want a name of the project that we're going to work with. So by tradition, I'm just going to start off by writing some basic math functions, and I'm going to call my extension math. And in the future, I might do something more complicated, but that's going to, when I hit enter, initialize a little extension project in our GameMaker project folder called math, and it's going to have these two files in it, config.json and xgenschema.json. xgenschema.json we can just ignore. That just contains some definitions that the extension generator wants. Config.json we are going to have to edit by hand. And you can open this up in your text editor of choice, Notepad, Notepad++, whatever. And we can, let's actually make that font size a little smaller. We can start defining a few things. So most of the auto-generated stuff that's going to come in this file is fine. The default values are fine. You probably can just ignore them. But there is some stuff we're going to have to add. Firstly, I'm just going to go here. I'm going to need to define a key value called input. And this is going to be the name of a file, which is going to be, I'm going to call it spec.gmidl, or as I'm probably going to call it for the rest of the video, GMIDL, because GMIDL is far too many syllables for a file extension. This is going to be the file which defines the template that we are going to use to generate our extension from. GMIDL stands for GameMaker Interface Definition Language. It is not a programming language per se, but it is a language for, I suppose you can call it a configuration language, which we will be using. Next, I'm going to need to... Actually, you know what? Let me deal with spec.gmidl first. I will come back to this, to config.json, to configure the rest of it later. So let's go and create that file. And I'm going to go create a new text file, and I'm just going to call it spec.gmidl. And Windows is going to yell at me for changing the file extension. I'm going to tell Windows to get stuffed. And we can open this in our text editor of choice as well. I'm pretty sure everybody who is going to watch a video like this already has this, but it would probably be useful if you're going to create files of random file extensions to make sure that file extensions are visible in Windows Explorer. You can go View, Show, File Name Extensions on Windows 11. I forget if that's there on Windows 10. You can also go Options, Folder Options, View, and then make sure the Hide Extensions for Known File Types is unchecked. I wish Windows would just make that the default. I don't really see any value in hiding file extensions, but whatever. Anyway, back to spec.gmiddle. We can start by writing some stuff. I'm going to say in square brackets GML underscore API, and I'm going to say under that module math followed by a semicolon. Obviously, in this case, math, replace this with whatever the name of your extension is. This is basically the header of this GMIDL file, which tells the extension generator, like, what it's working with. Under that, I'm going to type in square brackets global, and then function math underscore add a. I'm going to follow the a with a colon, and then let's say int 32, and then b also followed by a colon int 32, and then this whole thing, this whole function signature is going to be followed by a colon and then int 32. And this is what we're going to start with. This is our hello world. So going through this just step by step, this global here, this tag, this piece of metadata above this function definition, this has to be here for every function that you define in GameMaker currently. It doesn't really do anything, but it is more or less future-proofing for future versions of GML that might have more of a flexible namespace system instead of like making every function globally accessible. There's a couple of other attributes that you can stick on functions or stick on other properties that you define in a GMIDL file, but I'm not going to get into any of them now. Next, we have a function definition here, math underscore add. This is obviously going to define a function in our extension for, like, it's going to take 2 arguments and add 2 numbers together. The data types, I'm working with integers here, 32-bit integers, because by doing this, by having GameMaker pass arguments to the extension as 32-bit ints, we're going to save a little bit of trouble, which we would have to deal with later otherwise. GameMaker's default numeric data type is a 64-bit float, but it's good enough, and we will be using it to save ourselves some extra trouble that we'll have to deal with. Hey. And then the function itself is also going to return a 32-bit int, and that is going to be it for spec.gmiddle, at least for the time being. Alright, so next, coming back to the configuration file, GameMaker will pre-populate GML script files or GameMaker extension assets in your GameMaker project, but it will not modify your GameMaker project itself. So in order to actually allow the extension generator to automatically fill in our extension with what we defined in the GMIDL file, we are going to need to go and create an extension ourselves. I'm going to call this just math, and it's not quite as simple as just making sure that this extension asset exists. I will also have to go right-click in the resources list in the extension and create a generic placeholder, and that's going to be math.ext. So normally when you create an extension in GameMaker, you would like add a file, which would be a DLL file, and then you would define all the functions that you want GameMaker to be able to access in the DLL file. But since we don't have one of those yet, we're just going to add a generic proxy in the form of math.ext. Hey. And we're not going to define anything in it. This is what the extension generator will do for us. Make sure you save after creating a generic proxy file, by the way, because when I was messing with this a couple of days ago, I was running into problems where, like, I created the proxy file, but I forgot to save, and GameMaker didn't autosave, and the extension generator, like, didn't see it because I hadn't saved it yet. Anyway, let's come back here, and if I go into the GameMaker object in this JSON file, I'm going to need to define some stuff inside this GameMaker object, and I'm going to go with extension, extension. This itself is going to be an object, and there's going to be a couple of things that I need to put in here. One is going to be mode, and I want this to be a string containing the word patch. There's 2 modes of operation that the extension generator can use. One of them is going to be to modify an existing GameMaker extension file, which is what we're doing here. The other is going to be to just, like, spit out a .yy file, which you can then, like, surgically implant into your GameMaker project yourself. I don't know why you would want to do that. I don't see any situations where that would be less work than just patching an existing one. Anyway, I'm also going to want a key called output file like this, and it is going to be a string containing the location of the GameMaker extension file. So where that's going to be stored, assuming you've gone and initialized your extension in like the root of a GameMaker project like I have. So one level up in the extensions file, math, and then math.yy. That's where we want the file to live that we want to edit. So one level up in directory terms is going to be dot dot slash, and then extensions / math / math.yy. And that is going to tell the extension generator where to find that file. Alright, so we're almost done. I'm going to want to edit, I think, one more thing, and that is going to be in targets over here. So after the source folder and the source file, keys and values in this targets object, I'm going to want to add Windows, and this is going to be an object, but it's only going to contain one key, and that's going to be enabled true, and I want this to be inside quotes like this because JSON requires all keys to be strings. This is going to tell the extension generator to generate a source files for Windows, and the source files are what we are going to actually edit and build when we build our extension from source. If you're working on Linux or Mac, obviously you will want a like Linux or OS X like object in here, which is going to tell the extension generator to generate source projects for those platforms. I'm not going to enumerate like all of the platform specific things that you might want to put in here, but I will recommend that you go and read the documentation on the GitHub wiki, which is going to say what all of those things are. Anyway, so now that we've gone and configured this, I think this is everything I need, and I can now go back to the terminal. I do want to be inside the math folder, so I will just cd change directory to the math folder, and I will run the extension generator from inside this folder. Now, we can run the extension generator again, and instead of saying ---- init, we can say --config, and then config.json. The config.json is basically the like the master project file that the extension generator needs in order to do its job. So if I hit enter now, we can see some printouts appeared. So C++ extension and then success. Good, that means that we probably did it right. If I go into the math.x in the GameMaker project, we can now see that it has been populated with exactly one function. And this is going to be the math add function that we created. It's going to call a function of a different name inside the DLL. It's got some feather configuration in there. Once the DLL exists and has been added to the extension, we will be able to just call the math add function as if it's regular GameMaker code. But first, we do need to make sure that file exists. And to do that, let's go back to the extension project folder, and you can see that a fair amount of stuff has been auto-generated based on that config file. Most of it we don't actually need to look at, but the part that we do want to look at is going to be in the source folder, in the native folder, and here we have mathnative.c++ and mathnative.header. This is going to be an empty C++ file except for some like includes and whatnot. We are going to have to write the actual code, which is going to contain the logic for the function that we defined in here. I wish that when it generated the C++ file, the extension generator would like insert these stubs of the functions that we need to implement. But instead, we're going to have to figure out what exactly the names of the functions we need to implement ourselves are. If you look in the header file, it just includes math internal native.header, which is going to be found in another folder, which means that we have to go on a bit of a treasure hunt here in order to actually like figure out what we need to implement. So inside the code gen folder inside this project, we have core and native. Native is the one that we want to look at, and math internal underscore native.header is going to be the header file, which is going to actually give us the definition of the function that we want to implement in mathnative.c++. Yeah, see, I wish that when you ran the generator, it would just automatically populate this file with something like this. Just so that you know what the names of the functions are. Anyway, I think it should be fairly obvious what the implementation of an add function is that takes two arguments like this. So we can just write that out. This is all we need from the C++ side right now. And now we can go about building this. So here you have two options. So we're going to use cmake, and we're going to use cmake to either generate a Visual Studio project, which you compile yourself, or you can use cmake to generate the Visual Studio project and just compile it all in one shot. So if you just want to generate the Visual Studio project, we can say cmake -- preset, and I think the documentation on the wiki is presently wrong. It says that the preset that you should use is going to be named something like Windows Release, but I don't think that is actually the name of the preset that exists in the cmake files. Yeah, so if I type in the wrong name, it'll tell me what the preset names are. So we have either WinX64 Release or WinX64 Debug. If you're using Linux or OS X or whatever, then those names will most likely be different. Let's go with preset Win-X64, X64 Release. And that is going to use cmake to generate a Visual Studio project. And you can see the location of the folders that will have been spat out by that. It's going to be an output build Win-X64 Release, and then we've got a Visual Studio solution in here. So you can double click this to open it and then like build it yourself. You can also, for that matter, use Visual Studio to actually write and edit the C++ code that you need. This will all be in here. Let's see, source files. It should be under math, source files, and then math_native.c++. And that's just going to, this is the C++ that we wrote earlier. And you could go and build solution from here. Or you could use cmake for this as well. Cmake preset that and then -- build. And is it not -- build? Or is it, you know what? I think cmake is specific about the argument order. -- build should be at the beginning. Yeah, now it's gonna go. Alright, so once it compiles that DLL, it's going to, again, spit out the folder in which it put the DLL into. So that's going to be inside this, this like output build Win-X64 release folder. And then in release, there is a math.dll. And I got a little ahead of myself. I tried to run the GameMaker project without actually adding this DLL file to it. Obviously, that is not going to work. So, coming back to your GameMaker project, you will need to actually attach the DLL to this math.extension proxy file. And to do that, you can say, over here where it says proxy files, let's just click the plus and add it. And you can open up the file finder and you can like navigate to the file where that DLL was emitted. Let's just go and select that. You can select its target. This is for Windows. If you have a shared object for Linux or some other extension file for some other platform, you can insert it there. And now, let's go and actually try and call this function. So I'm just going to go and make myself a script. I'm going to go and let's say show message math_add. This is not appearing in code help. It should be because the function does exist in the extension, but nevertheless, let's add two numbers together, say 10 and 20. And now if I run the game, we have now successfully written and compiled an extension, which is going to allow us to add two numbers together. All right, so congratulations. We have successfully used the extension generator for the first time. So this is admittedly a lot of work for something really basic like this. If you were just wanted a basic math function to be accessible through GameMaker via a DLL, it would be a lot less effort to just do it the old-fashioned way. But this is also, the amount of work that this is will become less and less the more you try to do complicated things with DLLs in GameMaker. We could, let's say, go and close that, just go and define, like, where is the definition file? We could go and define, like, 4 other functions for other basic math operations. So, let's say add, subtract, multiply, and division. And if I run the extension generator again, if I run the based on the configuration, that is going to go and automatically insert all of these extra functions into the extension like this. And now all we would have to do would be to go and maybe I will actually use Visual Studio for this instead of VS Code and compile it from here, just so that I can show both. We will want, I'm guessing the names of the functions that we'll need to define are going to be like math sub, math mul, and math div. Let me just fill these in real fast. Let's see. I would like this formatted nicely. I don't know why the formatting got wrecked when we copied and pasted. When you subtract, we can subtract those numbers. When we multiply, we can multiply those numbers. When we divide, we can go ahead and divide these two numbers. I can hit Control-Shift-B to build the solution. I can also go into the build. All right, I'll have to wait for it to stop. I can also go into the. Oh, you didn't like that, did you? All right, we're just gonna go and hit the reload button there. You can also go and build solution from the build menu up here in Visual Studio. That will do basically the same thing. Also, I'm realizing now that the configuration that I built this with in Visual Studio is the debug config and not the release config, which means that it will have the DLL will have been built with like debug symbols, and maybe I want to build this with the release config. It doesn't really matter with something as basic as this, but we can rebuild that in the release config in Visual Studio. We can go into the release folder here. We can grab the updated file, and let's go back to the extension generator, and I'm gonna just copy and paste that DLL into here, and
Hey.
now all those extra math functions should be accessible through GameMaker. So if I were to go into here, let's show debug message. If you subtract those two numbers, if you multiply those two numbers, and if you divide those two numbers, let's see. So that is 10 plus 20. That is 10 minus 20. Okay, breaking character for a minute. Because the math multiply function does call integer division. This is going to be integer division between 10 and 20, which is going to be like not 0.5, but it is going to be truncated to 0. And lastly, when you call the last function, that actually adds them together. All right. So this is the extension generator. This, like I said, I think has the possibility of being quite a lot of fun. And there is indeed a whole lot more you can do with this with regards to other data types and more complex data types, and also defining like classes and objects and stuff within the GMIDL file. And we'll talk about all of that stuff later. But I think this has gone on for long enough, so until next time, my name is Michael. I like Wizards and Dragons and making games. I like to post videos on all kinds of weird stuff you can do in GameMaker, so if you're interested in any of this, feel free to subscribe. I have a Patreon, so if you'd like to contribute to the channel, links to that can be found in all the usual places. You should all go check out Wizarducks and the Lost Hat, which is one of the games that I like to work on when I'm not doing YouTube stuff. Link to the Steam page can be found down below. I hope you all found that useful, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to Zenjamin, Zach Robinson, Squarecrow, Spydeye Games, Pixelated Pope, Paradox, Nykotic, Manta Ray, GameMaker, GameArt Indie, Edward Holt, DJ Gibbles, Brenton, Bokeh Dev, and Argo the Knot for supporting these videos. If you want to join the ranks of these very cool people, head on down to the Patreon page in the video description to join the fun.